I wanted to start our conversation this evening talking about how we access inner abundance, because I think a lot of times we come here on Sunday mornings, Wednesday evenings for classes, and we talk about this idea that it's all happening within us, right? That the abundance is our birthright, that God is within us, that God is who and what we are, our source energy is who and what we are. And yet we live in this world, right? We live in this world, we're interacting consistently and constantly with the people around us. And so a recognition that it's also outside of us, I think, is a really powerful way to access what's within us. In other words, if I'm not able to get in touch with source energy that I am, I can look outside at that flower or taste that fruit, as Eckhart Tolle said, or really enjoy the rainfall and recognize the abundance that is the natural order of things in the world. I remember Reverend Joan one time, when a talk I heard, she was talking about a sidewalk. And if you look at a sidewalk, when there's a crack in the sidewalk, what happens? The grass grows through it. Life wants to happen. Life is abundant. It is the order of things. And so sometimes a recognition that abundance is outside of ourselves, as Eckhart Tolle said, it activates a recognition that there's also this abundance that is our birthright internally, because we're not separate from the world. And so as we move into an awareness, or give ourselves permission is one way to say it, or make a decision is another way to say it. I mean, I remember at one point, this profound idea, and I talk about it a little bit on Sunday for those of you who were here and those of you who love stream, that what I thought my mother was withholding from me, I started offering to her, and it was a game changer. I mean, it changed everything, and it was almost instant. I had been harboring this belief that my mother just wasn't there for me, or wasn't interested in me, or how come I have a mother that wasn't blah, blah, blah. And one of the things that was fascinating about that process, well, it's twofold, really. One, it was an opportunity for me to really recognize in practice, not just in theory, that when I feel something is lacking, I offer it. And then I began to, what happened in that relationship is as I offered that to her, so what did I think was lacking? An interest in my life. Was I taking an interest in hers? When I got honest with myself, I came to the conclusion that I wasn't really taking an interest in her life, that I was wanting her to take an interest in mine. So I began asking her questions about her life and really hearing things about her life. And what opened up from that, it started on the surface, right? We talked about, as I said on Sunday, home shopping network, etc. But it opened up a deepening of the relationship that led us to a place where we started talking with each other about some of the things that seemed unhealed from the past. She became really curious how I was doing based on certain things that she had seen about my own evolution as a child, as a teenager, as a young adult. And not only did healing happen, but something profound shifted in my awareness in that I was able to have an experience, not just a theory, that what I focus on grows, and what I feel I'm lacking, I offer, and something miraculous came to be. And then there was another layer of this, though, that was unexpected. My experience of my mother changed. I was able to go back to the past and think, wow, she was really accepting of me. She was really open-hearted to me. She never had a lot of criticism and judgment about who I was as a being, who I was, what choices I made. And I started listening to other people talk about the relationship they had with their family. And they would have a parent that wanted them to go to a certain school, or wanted them to be a certain, they wanted them to be a doctor or a lawyer, and anything less than that, they felt judged. I didn't have that from my mother. So it literally shifted not only what was happening in real time, but the entire perception of the relationship that went way back. And one of the things that happened there is the healing took place, and it shifted my reality in this time and space. In other words, it wasn't too late for me to have a happy childhood. Because I could go back and recognize that the belief system that I created based on what I thought happened is what was creating what I call reality. Now, how does this tie into our talk, our conversation, our theme of abundance? in the new paradigm for the month of September. A lot of those beliefs that I had developed because of what I thought happened was I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'll never amount to anything. And I was holding that energy. And because I was holding that energy, it was an indirect proportion to the abundance I was experiencing. So if I'm walking around with an I'm not lovable, how am I possibly going to let someone love me? Someone's going to want to love me and I'm literally going to repel like a magnet pointing the opposite direction. It's not until I did my own inner work of a recognition of how that got planted, when that got planted, when that gets activated, and what it will take for me to release that I could begin to recognize that not only was I worthy of love, but that I was love itself, right? Not separate from the love that I thought I was looking for. And so there was this evolution that happened in my own journey of abundance. And I don't know, maybe we can have a quantum moment where we just jump from like, I'm a victim to, oh my gosh, I'm one with the ultimate power of the universe. It seems like a lot of us have this journey where we go through it, right? I remember, I forget. I remember, I forget. I come to conscious community to be reminded that I have a real experience of that that's not just in my head. Then maybe I have a moment where I at least believe I forgot. And then I come back to it. And then eventually it's like the more and more time I spend in that knowing, the more and more we share that with each other at communities like Agape Bay Area, it gets magnified. That knowing gets magnified, and then all of a sudden, all that which I thought I needed from the world is there. That's the greatest paradox to me. When I was over here feeling broken and not good enough and thought that something outside needed to bring me love or bring me prosperity or bring me abundance so I could be okay, as I did the healing of that, I come to a place where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't need any of that to be abundant. And then all of a sudden, I'm available to receive it. Right? And then all of a sudden, it's all around me. Love is all around me every moment if I'm able and willing to see. So I think what I want to do in sort of moving toward wrapping up and getting ready for our conversation, which is what we really do on Wednesdays. I always say I'm the warm-up act here on Wednesdays. Is I want to offer the question, really, what does abundance mean to you? What would it mean to live a fully abundant life? And how do we step into the fullness of that? I did a radio show today, and I have been consistently being with this idea, or really it's an experience that it feels like the spiritual journey is kind of twofold. One, recognition of my essential self, spending time in the silence to know that in a more profound and a deeper way, building community where we reflect that God self back. That's one journey. And then there's this other journey, which is unlearning everything we ever believed that's counter to that. And I've noticed the conversation in the Agape Bay Area in the last 2 or 3, maybe even 4 weeks in classes and services after the services. Some people have been asking me, what's the importance of focusing on the lens, the story, the beliefs? I hear you talking a lot about the belief systems that need to be unlearned. Why can't we just be God? Go to God and be that presence? Well, my answer is, I think we can. And it seems like one of the purposes or one of the intentions of authentic community is to honor that we also come with that other. And I remember, we've all heard that we're human beings having a spiritual experience, and then we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And what a game changer that was, however many hundreds of years ago when Tara had said that. And now we're moving into a place where I'm asking the question, I'm not the only one, but many of us are asking the question, what if we're spiritual beings having a spiritual experience? And what if I didn't need to reject anything that I thought was human, right? So as soon as I say, I'm a spiritual being having a human experience, then I can say, oh, this sadness must not be spiritual. This frustration must not be spiritual. This anger must not be spiritual. I'm pissed off right now. Okay, What if that's God too? So then, see, there's the big game changer for me, because then it's not, we just need to be the presence of God, namaste. It's, yeah, we're the presence of God. I'm the presence of God in the midst of all of that. And there are moments that I have grief. There are moments that I have elation. There are moments that I have sadness. There are moments that I look at what's happening politically and I feel sad about it. There are moments I see what's happening politically and I feel grateful about it because I see the great awakening that's happening. My mind judges one of these as spiritual and one of these as human. And the more we use that language, the more duality we create. And so what if abundance, true abundance, was the integration of that which I've called human and that which I've called spiritual? I welcome it all. I can move from judgment to acceptance, from separation to oneness, not just as a concept or an idea, but an actual practice. And I know I can't do that in the world or for the world if I can't do that within myself and for myself. So I've had to come to terms in sometimes really painful ways and sometimes in really joyful ways that I'm a spiritual being, and part of my spiritualness in this incarnation is pain and sadness and frustration and joy and elation and getting the partner and losing the partner and birth and death. My ideas about that, though, my judgments about that are what causes the suffering. What if I honored this human experience, or what we call human experience, as spiritual, and actually began to change the dialogue and therefore the entire perspective of what's happening here? I was talking with someone earlier, we were having a conversation about, as we expand and grow in consciousness, as I have a greater awareness of my own ability to be bigger in the world, and I don't mean bigger in the world like certain political figures we know, I mean bigger in knowing my own light, which allows me to see that in others. When we grow in conscious awareness, sometimes we outgrow the old shell. You know, we talked about the crabs the last couple of Wednesdays. They outgrow their shells and they have to get a new one. So as we grow, maybe grief of that container is part of the process. I lean in, I grieve, so I can transform and expand. And I promise this is the last thing I'm going to say. I want to redefine humility. This came from a conversation earlier. Many of us have been taught that humility looks like this. I'm small and I'm over here, I'm very humble. But what if humility was actually knowing our own divine nature? What if humility became a definition, something like the ability to see myself as I truly am, the ability to see you as you truly are, the ability to step into my own magnificence and allow in my mind others to step into theirs. Celebrating more and more of us waking up to a greater reality, a greater truth of who and what we are. That to me is abundance. It's no longer rejecting any part of my experience. It's integrating all of it and welcoming it. Welcoming the sadness, welcoming the joy. Noticing if I have judgment. Moving from that into allowance. Not just acceptance, but allowance. And what that opens up is suddenly I'm in the flow of life. Suddenly there are people all around me on the same path. And suddenly we are co-creating a world that works for us to be beneficial presence on the planet and changing our experience of the world.